Hi everyone, thank you for joining us today for another session of IBM Automation Recipes. My name is Jenny and I'm the technical lead for IBM RPA in Asia Pacific. Today, we will go through a beginner exercise using IBM RPA to create a simple bot that will input data from a CSV file to a web form. You may find the CSV file that I use as well as a sample bot script in the asset folder link on the right side of your screen. The link should also be sent out to your email. On the left side of your screen, for those who are attending live, you may also find the Q&A panel where you may post any question you have during the session. First, let's take a look at the process details. You can see a sample CSV file on the right here with some basic information of a few people. Their first name, last name, gender, and date of birth. Let's assume they are new hire in the company and this data need to be updated in the HR system. So on the right side, we have the web form that is mimicking the interface of a HR application, and that the HR employee will need to go into this form to update the new hire info. Okay, now let's first open the WDG Studio. So over here, we will type in our username and then click login. So the tenant is determined and we type the password and click login again. Here I already have the script for the completed bot. This is the designer view, and then you can also see the script view, which is a bit more coding. Now let's start the bot and see what it does. The studio will turn into this debugging mode. Now the bot is started, and it will first open a browser, which I choose Chrome for this case. The bot fill in the form with the first person and then the second person, and then the third, and then the last one. So once done, the studio will exit debug mode and return to the original view. Okay, and that's all for the simple bot. We will now try step by step how to create it. First of all, we need to create a new RPA script file as per this brief instruction on the screen. If this is the first script that you create, you can create it from the start page. For me, I no longer have the start page, so you can simply click on the new button on the top menu and then click to create the new WAR file. To make things more simple to follow, I create this script flow, which is a step-by-step guide on the flow of the bot script. So the first step that we should do is to open the CSV file. To complete the first step, we simply use this command called read CSV file available in WDG. To drag and drop the command into the script, you just need to specify the location of the file and then specify a variable where you would like to save the file into. You can either specify this new variable using the script view code or through the interface in the command itself. Okay, now let's try on the studio. Just type CSV in the toolbox search. And then once drag the command over, we specify the file location. Make sure that you check the hash header. And then we need to create a data table for the output. Since we don't have one yet, just specify a name and then save the command. After open the CSV input file, what the bot needs to do next is to start a browser instance. The command that we look for here is called start browser. Again, we drag it into the script and then specify a name for the web instance. In this case, I'm using Google Chrome. The Studio will auto pop up this close browser command. Simply specify the same instance name and save. Now let's try it on the Studio. The third step in the flow is to navigate to the web page. Here I'm using SurveyMonkey as a web form, so copy that URL to input into the navigate command. Just a note that when you drag it over, the command navigate should be between start and close browser. The next step in the script flow is to create a loop. In this example, I create a for loop that will loop through every row in the data table that we created earlier from the CSV file input. Back to the Studio, let's find the for loop command. Drag it over in front of the navigate function. Then we specify a new variable for the iteration. So let's call it row iterator. And the value should start from 1. So it start from 1 and iterate till the total number of rows in the higher data table. Make sure that the step is set to 1 and save. Finally, just drag the navigate in between the loop and finish. Now step 5 is to map data from the CSV file to the iteration loop that we just created. For this step, we will use a command called map table row, which allows us to map each of the column in the input CSV into a new variable. Back to Studio. The data table should be the higher info that we created at the beginning. And then the rows is the row iterator. We will create mapping for a total of 4 columns. So over here, for simplicity, we will just specify them by the number. First column is the first name. So for each of these, we have to create a new variable. The last name, gender, and then for date of birth, I also specify that is currently using text. Later on, we will be modifying it a bit so that it's suitable for the input into the web form. After mapping the data, the next step is just to input them into the web form. For this step, we will need to go to the original survey site. Copy the selector for each of the input fields in the web form. The CSS selector will be required to be input correctly into the Studio command. Let's try this together. So first we go to the web link, choose inspect when right click on the first name input field, and then click copy selector on the right side. In the Studio, just choose set value to field is the name of the command. Drag it over. Make sure the selector type is CSS, and then just paste the selector that we just copied just now. The value correspond to this input is first name, and we can check the simulate human so that the bot will not input the data too fast. So we do similar for the last name. Click inspect and then copy the field to selector. And then go back to Studio and input this into the same command. So now let's try running this. I'll put a breakpoint before the next loop so that it will not loop through every single row. So it will just stop on the first row. To the bot, open the browser and then input first name and last name. The next input in the CSV is gender, and for this particular variable, we need to check whether gender is female or male to determine whether which box in the web form should be checked. Once we know which gender it is, we can simply again inspect and copy the selector to input into the command called click on web page. Again, let's try it on the Studio. First, let's just close the debugging window that we used just now. Insert the if command. So basically what it does is to check gender, whether it's equal to a value. The first one, let's set it to female. And then insert the else if the value equal to male. Okay, once that's done, let's go back to the survey again and then inspect, copy the selector, and then the command is click on web page. Insert the CSS selector, simulate human and save. And then we do similarly for the second checks. Okay, now let's run the bot again. So again, it enter debug window, open browser. And then we can see here that the first three input is checked. Close the debug window and let's move on. For the last input field, it is a bit more complicated because it is the date of birth, which is a date-time format, and the date-time format in the CSV input file is different from that in the survey that we are required to key in. So we need to do two conversions here. The first one is from the CSV text format to a standard date time, and then the second conversion is to convert from that date time format to the correct text format that the survey monkey will require. To ensure the accuracy, we will choose to create a custom date format for the second conversion. It will be easier to explain from the Studio. So again, we check for the command called convert. So we use the second one first, convert text to date time. And then just make sure that it's a date of birth text. And then we indicate a new variable for the output. Let's call it date of birth, date time, and then save. And then input the second command to convert back the date time variable that we create just now, and then use the custom format, a new variable. So in this case, we call it the format date of birth, and then for the value, we will basically need to match this to the required input in the survey. So in this case, it's date, month, and year. Make sure that the month is in capitalized. And then the output code, date of birth converted. Okay. And last but not least, we again copy the selector for this input field. And then we set the value for that input field to the date of birth converted format that we got just now. Okay, all done. So now we will run the bot again, just to check that everything's okay. Yep. Okay, so we have the date of birth input. Great. So the final step of our bot script is to submit the form. And to do this, we simply need to use again the click on web page command. And then after that, we will run the entire script for debugging. Okay, let's go back to the studio. Close the debug window. And then now let's go back to the survey and copy the selector for the submit button. We will use the click on web page again, the command, and then simply input the selector that is copied, simulate human, and save. And then with that, we have the completed for loop. So now let's run this. Just to check the last time that all the field will be input correctly. Yep, so we have reached the thank you page. So just for comparison, we can also use the step in the debug window to move, to see the bot move step by step. So over here you can see that the step is to navigate back to the survey site, and then again input first name for the second entry, the second loop. Okay, so everything looks correct. Let's go back and remove the breakpoint, and then we will just run the bot again from the beginning. First loop. Okay, second one, go back to same site. Third loop. And we are done. Okay, so just for a slight comparison, we complete this bot, and compared to the sample bot that I created, there are just a few differences. The first one here is a command to get system folder path. So in case you want to open it from your end, you can use that to locate from the desktop. And I also add a wait for web page to load complete, so that the bot will not run too fast. Okay, so with this, we have come to the end of the IBM Automation Recipe session for today. Thank you everyone for your kind attention, and I hope this is helpful to help you get familiar with more commands within the IBM RPA Studio. If you still have any questions, please feel free to post it in the Q&A, and all the artifacts links should be shared with you through emails should you want to rewatch and practice on your own time. Thank you and have a great day.